I love dragons and death, 'cause they are fun. This is Tory Survives Game of Thrones, episode 24. It's a comedic abridgment and blind reading of the Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin series of books. We're currently on the first book, which is Game of Thrones, and we're on chapter 23, Daenerys. Now, some of these are pretty hard, so I'm gonna try and step lightly because our poor Daenerys, to just do it chronologically, has been having a time, like a really bad time. After the wedding and, that one nice night, she has to ride because they're going to Vaes Dothrak, and she's not holding up so well. She was not built for riding constantly with no warning, so she's getting hand blisters, she's getting saddle sores, her thighs are chafing, her back is just absolutely torn up by the end of the day. And to make things worse, Khal Drogo is just on his own stuff. He's completely ignoring her while they ride. Then when they camp for the night, he's sitting around with the boys, watching the girls dance and watching guys fight. So, she's just eating dinner alone or with Jorah and her brother. More on that a little bit later. The only time she sees him is when he stumbles in her tent, drunken, and starts having extremely rough marital times with her, to the point where she's crying and she has to bury her face and she's actually making sounds of pain, and then he's snoring next to her. She can't sleep after that, and then it's time to do it all again in a cycle. And just add to this her brother, who, oh my gosh, Viserys is just a delusional little piece of crap. I actually dislike this guy more than Joffrey even. Team Viserys gets kicked by a horse. I'm waiting for it, but he's miserable. That's why we're doing the emo things right now, for Daenerys, but he's miserable too. He can't get used to the saddles. He's running around on his borrowed sword, just being ignored and stuff. Actually, Illyrio, the big fat traitor who basically human trafficked them, offered to let Viserys stay with him, in his manse, and he was like, just stay back here and they'll come back with the payment. And Viserys was like, no, I need my money. He's like, Rihanna, bitch better have my money. And he's like, if he tries to cheat me, he'll see what happens when you wake the dragon. And Illyrio, literally, it says he just blinks and wishes him well. So he's like, good luck. But so he's going cussing up a storm, and Jorah's with him, trying to be his attending or whatever. And that's just making everything worse, because every time he comes in contact with Dany, he's abusive, and she's spiraling out, y'all. It's bad. She's full-blown emo and stuff, but it just keeps happening day after day, and she's just like, I can't do this anymore. And she hits her limit. She's about to give up the ghost. She's just I'm done, I'm gonna end this. And luckily that night she has this dream, and it's another one of those dreams, but this time Viserys isn't there at all. It's just the big black dragon, with the molten eyes, and he's covered in blood, but she realizes it's her blood. And I'm thinking from before, the blood was like coming out from between her legs. So maybe she gave birth to the dragon, or it's symbolic, like, I am the blood of the dragon. And like, that's the dragon in her blood or whatever. But basically, this dragon sizes her up, and she's looking, and it just breathes hot fire like at her, and instead of like trying to run or dodge, she kind of she has a moment, she's like, and just gets immolated by this fire. But in her dream, she doesn't feel any pain at all. Like, it says that she feels like the fire burning her away and burning her flesh and, steaming her blood and everything. But like, the words that are used is like, she feels the fire cleanse her and temper her and scour her clean. So like, I guess she's kind of reborn in this dragon fire from this dream, and it carries to the real world. Like, when she wakes up, she hurts a little less. Even her attendants are noticing, like, Jiki and Eerie, they're like, because Jiki is her maiden who's supposed to teach her Dothraki and customs, and then Eerie is her riding instructor. She has 3 maids. She also has Dora, who's the blonde, like, sex bomb one. But they're like, are you sick? And she's like, I was, but I'm better now. And that's kind of a turning point for her, because after that, things start noticeably getting better. Like, her body starts toughening, her blisters pop, her thighs start, getting kind of leathery, and like, she can ride more. It stops wearing her out so much. And like, at night, she starts kind of getting used to it, and like, sometimes she's enjoying it and stuff. Like, it's not necessarily just super bad. And she starts getting really into the journey, because she's realizing, like, now that she's not super whatever. Hold on, I gotta switch this because it was a phase, right? So now she's not anymore. Anyway, sorry, I was waiting to do that joke. Okay, I know, like, maybe like 5 emo kids are gonna laugh at that, but what's up, emo kids? I see you. It was a phase. So she's getting really into the world, and they're going through all these places she's never seen before. And she actually looks forward to getting to ride her horse, because she's super into her horse. Like, she never felt like a princess her whole life until she got her horse. And the Dothraki don't, like, name their horses and stuff, but so she just calls hers the Silver. But she's in love with that horse. She is such a horse girl. Like her chapters are basically a horse movie. But anyway, she's seeing like waterfalls and ancient Valyrian streets that are super straight. And she goes through this forest. I think it's like the Corn Forest or whatever. And they're telling her, like, there's lemurs and spotted tigers and grand elks and stuff. She doesn't get to see any of them because they're basically a giant traveling procession. There we go. Yeah, right. It was a phase. Anyway, sorry about that. Anyway, and she's actually enjoying her life, and she starts assimilating. And like, her brother is still like miserable, wearing like all the city silk and stuff, and it's getting stained and dirty. And she's adopting like the Dothraki clothes and the oils and everything, and she's starting to really fit in, and just kind of riding and enjoying. They say she sees all these different things that are like kind of wondrous and like giant rivers. She's living her life and riding her horse, and she's like, I love my horse. The silver is the best. This is so pretty, you know? And she's actually kind of getting there, and she's starting to feel it a little bit. So like, this is where the story actually starts, like the chapter. But they're coming over this ridge, and it's the Dothraki Sea. And the Dothraki Sea is actually made of grass. It's just plains all over, like no mountains, nothing. Like you just see this field of green, and she's like, it's so green, you know? And Jorah is with her, Jorah Mormont. And we get some good details on Jorah finally. And it turns out, if you'll excuse the alliteration, he is this big, bald, bushy, bull-necked bear, right? So just like his dad, Jorah Mormont, you know, who runs the Black Watch, like he's just thick and furry, you know, like, and he's riding with her, and he's telling her about like all the grass and stuff, because I think he keeps doing that like a tour guide, you know. He's like trying to explain the world to her, because I think he knows like she was really sheltered. So he's like, yeah, it's not always even just green. Like when it blooms, there's dark red flowers, you know, as far as the eye could see. And during the dry season, when it dries out, it's bronze everywhere. And he's like, there's thousands of kinds of grass, you know, around here, from like kind of yellow lemongrass to indigo grass. Like there's a whole rainbow. And he brings up something that I thought was kind of cool. He's like, you know, in certain places they even have ghost grass that's said to kill all other grass, and it grows as high as a man, and it glows in the dark, they say, with the spirits of all of the ghosts that the grass has eaten. So, and the Dothraki actually believe eventually ghost grass will cover the entire world, and that's how the world's gonna end. And she's off her emo stuff. She's like, I don't want to think about everything dying right now. I just want to go. And then she sees this big patch of grass with her horse, and she's like, hey, tell everybody to stop. Tell them I command it. And Jorah's like, oh, you're starting to talk like a queen, you know? And she's like, I'm not a queen, I'm a Khaleesi. You know, like, but she's feeling it. So she gets off her horse, and she kind of walks, because she sees like this big patch of dirt and stuff. And basically, like, for my gamers, she just wants to touch grass. You know, like, she actually goes and touches grass. And she has the silver, like, grazing, and she pulls her boots off, and she's like squishing it with her toes, and, you know, like, just the dirt. And she's having a moment, like, spinning around like the hills are low. Oh wait, actually, just so you guys know, I got a new stool. Yeah, that's right, production values. So she's spinning around like the hills are alive with the sound, you know. Anyway, but she can hear like this shrill little bitch voice, you know, yelling at Jorah, like, you know. And then boom, there's freaking Viserys, right? And he's just killing the vibe. He like rears his horse up because he stops it bad, and he like jumps off, and he's like, how dare you, how dare you. That's how I picture him in my head. He's like, how dare you, you know. And he's like, you dare to command the dragon, you know. And he does the same move he tried before. Like, he like shoves his hand under her vest and tries to give her like a titty twister and stuff. And she does something she's never done before, right? And she just shoves his ass. And he goes back flying. He goes, ah, you know, which I'll take it. It's not a horse kick, but I'll take it. And then, you know, she's like, in her head even, because I am so sorry. In her head even, and she's like, he's really gonna hurt me now, because his face just twists with rage. Like, he's like, yeah, you know, like, you have woken the dragon, right? And he goes and he starts walking at her, and then just all of a sudden it's like whap, you know, around his neck, and he's out, like, just down, you know, and he's choking, and he's like, you know, and there is one of Khal Drogo's blood riders, and it's Jogo. You know, the one name I remembered, Jogo came through, right? And he just shows up like, uh-oh, motherfucker, you know, like, and he yells to her because he's got him on the ground, you know, with the whip around his neck. He's like, you want me to kill him? You know, because she's Khaleesi. She gave a command, you know, and Jorah pretty much says that. Like, he's riding up and he's like, I tried to warn him, you know? And she's like, I know. And she's like, don't kill him, you know? And then Caro, one of Khal Drogo's other blood riders, he's like, maybe you should cut off an ear so he learns a lesson, right? And she's like, I don't want him hurt. And they're kind of making a face, so I think she's like, okay, I gotta give him something. And she's like, sorry, apparently I'm not long for this world. Anyway, she's like, we'll take his horse. All right, he can walk back to camp this time. And, you know, he's sputtering and right. And like Jogo actually like yanks his little whip, and he's like dancing around like a puppet to like loosen it, and he pulls it off. And he's like, yo, what? You know, because in like the Dothraki culture, a man who doesn't ride a horse is just beyond crap. Like, he has no honor, he stands for nothing. You know, like, him having to be a walker, you know, means essentially like he got shunned, you know. So he's like, to Jorah, who, you know, swore to him and stuff, and because, you know, Dany's sitting there, and for the first time in her life, she's like, man, he is pitiful. Like, how did I never see this before? You know, because I think part of the dream, at least part of the symbolism, is like she's starting to realize like she's the blood of the dragon, not Viserys. You know what I mean? Because like she looks at him and she just feels pity. Like, he's sitting there with his borrowed sword, his like stained silk, and he's I am the dragon, you know. And he says it in common, so the blood riders won't be able to hear him, which is first sign you a bitch, right? And he tells Jorah, you know, Mormont, who's his sworn sword, he's like, hit her, kill those motherfuckers, like nobody disrespects me. I'm the rightful king of the 7 kingdoms. Tear it up. And Jorah is kind of like looking at him, and then he's looking at Dany, and he's seeing how assimilated Dany is, and how like much this little dude sticks out. And then he like looks over to the blood riders, and he's just like, he'll walk, your majesty, you know. And straight up grabs his horse, and him and Dany start trotting off, you know, because like he just picked his side. And honestly, I think he chose wisely, you know. And meanwhile, Viserys is just sitting there like brooding, like, I'm the dragon, you don't do this to the dragon, you know, or whatever. But then they're like, you know, kind of riding out, and Dany's like, you think he'll be okay? Like, you think he'll find his way back? And Jorah's like, there's no way. You know, like, we're leaving such a big trail, because the Khalasar is basically a moving city. It's giant. There's like 40,000 of them. He's like, there's no way you're getting lost. And even if he did get lost, the scouts and, the Khalasar would find him eventually. But there's no way he doesn't actually, match back up with us. Sorry about this. Well, I don't have time to re-record. Like, I'm on a update schedule, so I apologize for all the coughs. I've been having a little bit of a thing. Anyway, so they're saying like he won't get lost, and she's like, man, I really messed up. He's gonna be really mad when he gets back. Do you think I woke the dragon? And Jorah snorts. He's just like he's like, okay, let's get some. There was the last dragon. Like, well, no, he actually says, not unless you wake the dead, because the last dragon was Rhaegar Targaryen, and he died in a trident. Like, your brother isn't even a shadow of a snake, right? And Dany's kind of like wide-eyed, like, because she's never heard anybody like just be candid about her brother, and she's like, but you swore your sword to him. And Jorah, like, he kind of gets bitter for a second, and he's like, and what's that say about me? Like, like, just doesn't give it to her. And she's like, well, he is the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. Like, the common folk, they secretly make dragon banners and pray for his return. And Jorah just totally leveling with her bluntly on this ride back. He's like, look, the common people don't care about him. Like, they're praying for like peace and never-ending summers and food and babies, but they don't, as far as like who's playing the Game of Thrones, they really don't care which lord is over them, as long as their life's peaceful, because it never is, and he's like, telling me true, would you like to see him on a throne? And she's like, I don't suppose he'd make a good king, and basically she says something to that effect. And he's like, yeah, there's very few people that could be a worse king than him, and she kind of changes the subject a little bit, and she's like, well, what do you pray for, Jorah? And he's like, home, like, just without even pausing. And she's like, yeah, me too. And Jorah is actually like, you're home, like, look at you. But in her head, she was still thinking of like Dragonstone and the Red Keep, over in Westeros, and, the lands of yore that she came from. But she doesn't say like too much about it, because like she's troubled now, because she's like starting to really see her brother, like his like little abusive illusion is cracked. And she's like, he's gonna fail, and Jorah's just like, tell me more, like, and she's like, I mean, even if my husband gives him an army, he doesn't have any coin. He can't lead it. He'll never take back Westeros. Sorry, brief mortality pause. Anyway, he'll never take back Westeros. And they're just kind of quiet, because Jorah's like, you're pretty perceptive, like, that's pretty much all he could say, because he doesn't want to, like, whatever. But, they're going, and they finally break camp. They get to, they get to, like, her tent and everything, which is already being set up by the slaves, the servants, because Dothraki take slaves. That's actually how Jiki and Eerie kind of came, was the Khal Drogo crushed another Khalasar, and yeah, now she has maids. But they pull out like this giant bronze bathtub, and they make like a fire, and they're heating up water and throwing it in so she can have a bath, because she got this bathtub as one of her wedding presents. So they're trying to like pretty her up, and they get it nice and steaming, and she gets in the bath, and I think Eerie gets in with her. It might have been Jiki, but they're talking, and she's just kind of like, because one thing I forgot to mention was, like, when she woke up from the dream, she touched her dragon egg and it felt like a little warm, and she's like maybe I'm still dreaming. And when she first comes back in, like, the tent, you know, like this little beam of sun kind of hits the dragon eggs, and the black one, which is the same colors as the one that was in her dream, is glittering for a second. You know, it says it looks like it's emblazoned. And she goes over and touches it, and it feels kind of warm and hot, and she's like, well, the sun probably warmed them up, you know. But then they get into the bath, and she's like, have you guys ever seen any dragons? You know, because they mention a whole lot of stuff where she might not be as out of pocket, you know, because they're like, oh, there's no dragons, there hasn't been any dragon, like, all the dragons are dead, you know. And like she's thinking, you know, they got like, they're like in Westeros, you know, when the doom fell on Valyria, which, ominous. So apparently that's what happened to Valyria, was doom fell on it. But it said, like, nothing could stop it. Not, you know, the storm slingers, not spell forged steel, not, you know, I think they mentioned aeromancers. That might be in the east or whatever. But, you know, basically not dragons. And magic just kind of died over there. But in the east, you know, where they said the dragons originally came from, like, from the Shadowlands and stuff, where Bran, you know, saw in his dream, where dragons were, you know, stirred below the sunrise or whatever. Like, she figured, yeah, maybe there's some around. Because, like, there's all this talk, like, of, like, spell singers and warlocks and aeromancers. And even at night, like, there's dark little dudes, like shadow binders and stuff that they mention working in secret, you know. And she figures, like, if there's, you know, manticores and stuff, because she doesn't know what's myth and what's not. And she's like, if there's manticores and basilisks and all sorts of stuff, like, why wouldn't there be dragons? And the girls are basically just like, it's known, like, they're all dead. They were wicked, evil creatures, and brave men killed them all, basically, because I guess they don't have a very good reputation being dragons. And on top of that, like, Dora, actually, the blonde from Lysine, she's like, you know, I've heard that they came from the moon, from a trader one time. And the other girls are like snickering, they're like, no. And she's like, yeah, no, he told me that the moon was an egg. There used to be 2 moons, and one hit the sun, and the dragons, they drank of the fire of the sun, and that's why they breathe fire. And when the egg broke, it was 1,000 dragons that just came down, and eventually, you know, the other moon is gonna hit the sun, and there'll be 1,000 more dragons, and dragons will return, you know. And Jiki and Eerie are like, you're stupid. The moon is God, and everybody knows it. It's the wife to the sun, you know, like. So they're like, nah, this ain't going down, you know. And they're basically telling, because see, Dora's a little older. She's like 20, and the rest of them are like 13, almost 14, you know. And she's like, yeah, that traitor took you for a ride. But, you know, she kind of sticks to her guns. She's like, you know. And after the bath, they're perfuming her and getting her nice and pretty and oiling her and just all sorts of finery, like brushing her hair and stuff. I know my hair is not brushed, but what you gonna do? I don't have a hair guy or girl or whatever. So anyway, so this is what you get. So like they're doing that, and she's like, hey, can you hold back Dora, like, you know, when everybody's leaving? And Dora's like, yeah, sure, I'll eat with you, you know, you honor me. And she's like, okay, well, let's just have a talk. And they're sitting there, and it kind of cuts away from the talk, but they're sitting there like, because I think Dany is like, she's plotting. So my boy Khal Drogo doesn't know what's about to hit him, because he walks into the tent, and he's all like probably thinking like, let's get it on, right? You know. And she surprises him, because she like pops up, she takes her like sleeping silks and whatnot, and she's just like, like, what you think of these, Drogo? You know. And again, I know she's young and whatever, so we're just picturing Emilia Clarke. Thank you again, Emilia Clarke, a million times. But you know, she's like, what you think of these, big boy? And she takes him out of the tent, right? And she tells him, she's like, everything important in a man's life has to be done under the sky. So he's like, what the hell? And she's already naked, right? So she starts like unbuttoning his stuff and whatever, and she's like, come on, big boy, you know. And there's no privacy in the middle of the Khalasar, right? So she's just like, I don't even care. Like, she gets him naked, and he goes to like turn her around like normal Dothraki, and she like puts her hand on his chest, and she's like, no, right? She's like, I want to see your face, you know, and pushes him down, right? And she jumps on him like he's the silver, and proceeds to just start riding this dude. And, you know, like, she's doing all the stuff she was talking to Dora about, right? And they can see her, like, people are whispering, like, oh my God, did you see that movie? You know? And she's like, I don't care, I'm Khaleesi, the only eyes that matter are Drogo's, right? And she's sitting there, like, just, who's my pony? Who's my pony? You know? And stuff. And he starts getting close. And she's like, what's my name? And he calls out her name. Even like, she turns him out. He's just like, Daenerys. You know? And like, falls over. And there's like no reaction shot. It just cuts, you know, to them being at the end of this Dothraki Sea. Like, they're at the far end of it. And it's her 14th birthday. They mentioned that. And Jiki, I believe, goes up and like rubs her tummy, and she's like, you're a child. And she's like, yeah, I know. You know, but like, yeah, so she turned him out and knocked herself up, and that's pretty much it. So in summation, Viserys is probably fuming mad, but he didn't do nothing about it so far. Khal Drogo got turned into a pony by a horse girl. But I guess he doesn't have too much trouble, because it says like his eyes, there's something in his eyes that changes when she starts doing it, like, and obviously it's for the better. And then you know, Dany is like liking the exploration and settling in a queen, and she's like, I'm gonna break your dick, Drogo. So I guess she's trying to live her best life, dreaming about dragons with a slowly warming up dragon egg that she keeps telling herself is just stone. On top of that, I guess Jorah is kind of switching sides from Viserys to Dany. Like, he knows where his bread's ultimately gonna get buttered. But my lungs slowly quitting on me, apparently. But This is Tory Survives Game of Thrones. Like halfway this time. Sorry for all the coughing. We just finished chapter 23 of Game of Thrones, titled Daenerys 3. You were hopefully at least mildly amused. I'm trying over here. I really am. I just keep working on it. All right, so I'll just keep getting better, hopefully. And I love you.
Thanks for watching my show. Like and subscribe.